Good Tuesday afternoon. Thank you for hopping on NCSA Live. I'm David Kamisik, Senior Recruiting Manager here at Next College Student Athlete. Over the next half hour, we're going to educate you all on the recruiting process. We're going to start with a specific topic, but certainly encourage you guys to participate. So any questions you may have, whatever platform you're watching us on, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, jot a question down there at the bottom of the screen, and we'll get to as many as we can here over the next half hour. So we like it interactive, challenge us a little bit, bring some questions. I say us because I'm joined by the magnificent Christina Sipany Cicero from our College Coach Relations team, or if acronyms are more your thing, CNC. Good afternoon, CNC. How are you?
You know, it's always a great day when I'm on here with you, DK. How are you today?
Best half hour of my day, Kristen, coming up right here. So excited to join you. And today's topic that we're going to focus on is how the NCAA recruiting calendars can really impact your recruiting. So the NCAA has rules in place in terms of contact periods, different types of periods. We're going to talk about what they are. How do those recruiting periods impact college coach contact with emails, phone calls, DMs, etc.? How to do the recruiting periods impact campus visits? How do they impact live in-person events? So we're going to hit on all of these topics here over the next half hour or so. But I think first and foremost, what's important to know is the different kind of contact periods. I've got a graphic here to help kind of clarify that. So there's different periods. There's a dead period, the quiet period, the contact period, the evaluation period. As you can see, there are certain restrictions that college coaches have based on the time of the year in terms of the contact they can have. So, Christy, let's start with you. Just if you can kind of talk through a little bit these contact periods. You being a former college coach, you've had to live through these rules and understand these rules and apply these rules. But what are the recruiting periods? Let's talk a little bit about what that's entailed.
Yeah. So to keep it a little bit broad right now, before we kind of get into each dead, quiet, contact, and evaluation period, coaches have to follow them. A majority of schools, especially Division I, Division II, and a pretty decent amount of also Division III schools, they have compliance officers that they are always looking at every single rule that may or may not be broken by college coaches. And we can get in a lot of trouble. We can get scholarships taken away. We can get competition taken away. So it's very important for not only coaches to obviously follow all these periods, but for student athletes, you have to know what each dead, quiet, contact, and evaluation period means. David, I didn't know if you wanted to bring back the that slide where it shows kind of all the different content. There we go. So obviously the dead period, I feel like a lot of people know what the dead period is. It's essentially no contact is really allowed. You could always reach out. You can call, you can text, you could DM, you could email. A lot of coaches, they're probably not going to be answering. Not only is it a dead period, but at least for the women's college hockey world that I was in, we were in Florida. I was away from my computer and I wasn't answering anything. But again, you could still call and email, but most likely coaches are not going to be responding. DK, did you kind of want to go over a couple of the other ones, or should we keep it a little bit broad for now?
Yeah, let's get that in a second. I think first and foremost, what's important to know, and you kind of touched on it, is this is really heavy for Division I and Division II schools. Division III, NAIA programs, junior colleges, there's really no restrictions in terms of when they can communicate with the student athlete. For juniors and seniors, Division I and Division II schools, that's when the process can really pick up. So June 15th or September 1st between your sophomore and junior year is really when the floodgates open in terms of the college coaches being able to initiate contact with student athletes. So again, that's for Division I and Division II. For Division III, NAIA, junior colleges, there's no restrictions in terms of when a coach can contact you. So as a freshman in high school, you can have a conversation with a Division III and NAIA program at junior college. It's different for Division I and Division II schools. And again, Christy, that's in terms of what the coaches can do in terms of directly contacting you, but they can be sending out letters, questionnaires, camp invites. That's stuff that coaches will do to freshmen to sophomores to let them know they're on your radar. They're someone that we've identified as a potential recruit. So the coaches, that doesn't mean that they can't do anything. It just means that the direct communication is a little bit restricted in terms of those periods. But again, freshman year, you walk in that door your first day of freshman year, you're a recruitable student athlete under NCAA rules, and coaches can start sending information to you to let them know again that you're on their radar.
Yeah, and you hit it right on the head. And another thing that they're going to do, mainly because we are in an NCSA Facebook Live is, and again, I work in our college coach relations department. So not only was I a former college coach, I'm still talking to college coaches on a daily basis. And I believe it was last month we had a Division I baseball team reach out, big time school. And they're like, I love the fact that we can use that little button, the follow button, saying to these younger kids, hey, we're watching you, we're interested. And that's just another way that these coaches are going to contact you. Had to plug that in. So outside of sending these the camp invites and, just that first initial contact that they're allowed to have is sending just like a blanketed information list, if you will, about their school and program. They're also logging onto their NCSA coach accounts, making sure that that they're following you as well, to give you a little nudge saying we're watching.
Yeah, that's the powerful thing I think about our network is, even as a freshman or sophomore in high school, when you have a profile, when it's fully in our network, you're able to see that. You're able to see, okay, this coach is following me, or this coach has viewed my profile, or they've checked out some information. So it makes the tracking a lot easier. Again, you can be getting that information, but a lot of times too, coaches will send out blanketed camp invites. Give you an example myself. My nephew's a freshman baseball player in high school. He got his first camp invite from Indiana University. Now, realistically, is Indiana recruiting him? Probably not. But they're coming to an event in Chicago. They want to get some Chicago kids in the event, so they sent him a camp invite. So it's a good sign that he got something, but that doesn't mean that all of a sudden Indiana University is full on recruiting my nephew. So there is a little bit of a kind of having to read through the fine print between some of that stuff, because some of that can just be blasted out to student athletes all over the place. But Christy, I think what's important is we talked a lot about the college coaches and what they can do, but I think it's important for student athletes to know you don't have to sit back and wait for coaches to contact you, right? Regardless of what period we're in, as a student athlete, you can and you should be initiating contact with college coaches early on to get yourselves on their radars, not just relying on these coaches to find you, because there's thousands and 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 thousands of high school athletes that want to play in college. So the more proactive a student athlete is, again, regardless of what period it is, you can take that initiative and get yourself known by those coaches.
100%. If you're not doing that right now, I don't know what else you're waiting for, right? I think like the old saying is, if you're good enough, then they're going to find you. It's really outdated nowadays because there are so many student athletes playing their sport. Like Paige Buckets from UConn, girl was a stud last night. I'm sure that she didn't just sit back and wait for Gino to recruit her to UConn, right? I'm almost certain that she reached out and she was doing her due diligence even before probably she was recruitable, probably when she was in 7th or 8th grade, when you kind of know what your athletic ability is. I mean, Paige Buckets, that's probably a different story. Like you could probably tell that she was going to go to UConn D1 to play women's basketball. But even if you're, like I said, even if you're in 7th, 8th, 9th grade, where that recruiting is really starting to pick up, make sure that you're emailing, even though that the coach can't directly make contact back with you. They're reading through those emails. They're contacting your high school coaches. They're contacting your club travel AAU club coaches. They're making sure that they're finding out more information about you, and probably through the grapevines, like David's nephew. Maybe Indiana did reach out to the club coach and they're like, let's find out more information about him. We're going to keep an eye on him. Or maybe it was hey, yeah, we're definitely not interested in that kid. I don't want to waste their time. So there are different ways, reading between the lines, bending the rules a little bit. I did it a lot as a college coach. I will be very upfront with it and say, I contacted travel and club coaches, say, hey, this kid emailed me. She's in 8th grade. What do you think about her? What's her projection? So coaches are still doing their research on you right now, even if they're not allowed to talk to you. So keep sending your schedules, keep sending updated questionnaires, updated transcripts, because they are watching all the time.
Yeah, so update your profile at NCSA. You can put the transcripts, you can put all the schedules in there. So again, that one-stop shop for college coaches to be able to access is certainly a huge plus. Christy, let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk more about the in-person and how the recruiting periods affect some of the in-person communication. We talked a lot about the digital communication or over the phone, but these periods can impact how a student athlete and college coach can interact when it comes to visiting a campus, right? So student athletes will take either unofficial or official visits to a university. Typically, the official visits won't be happening during these kind of quiet, dead periods. But if you're on an unofficial visit, what's the interaction like, or what can happen between a student athlete and a college coach when they're on campus during some of these different periods?
Yeah, so I kind of want to hit on the unofficial visits, because I'll say 8 times out of 10, they're most likely happening from like, I'll go as low as 8th grade, but so we'll say 8th or 9th grade all the way up to, junior year, like prior to getting that official. When you're on campus, there's no rules essentially. Once you are on campus, the coach can call you that day. They could text you that day, no matter what age you are. So that's the really most important thing about the unofficial visits is all bets are off. Essentially, they could call you, they could text you, they could offer you, they could spend all day with you. You can't spend your time overnight on an unofficial visit. But in regards to communication, like I said, to put it very simple, all bets are off. But it is important to note that, again, like David spoke about earlier, for Division III, JUCOs, NAIs, there's essentially no rules. So you could, if I was a Division III coach, I could call or text you when you're in 6th grade, even though I probably never would. But again, there are no rules when it comes to those division levels.
Yeah. So again, the visits are important for student athletes. It's an opportunity for you to check out the campus, get a chance to tour the facilities, perhaps check out maybe a game, whatever the case might be. So those visits are really important. It's a later step in the recruiting process a lot of the time. And you're not just going to show up to a campus, call a coach, and that coach is going to take half hour out of their day to meet with somebody they don't know. So again, the visits on campus, again, depending on the different periods, that communication can be a little bit impacted. The other thing that the periods can really impact, Christy, we talk about is events. So whether that's tournaments, whether that's showcases, whether that is tournaments, how coaches are able to interact with student athletes at those can vary as well. So Christy, if you could touch on that a little bit in terms of college coach presence at an event, at a tournament, a showcase, and that reaction or that interaction they can have with the student athlete there.
Yeah, and I think it just really goes back to those dates that you shared, the June 15th, September 1. It really just depends on their age. So 9 times out of 10, they can't talk to you at the event. If you're committed, if there's a certain time, especially in your senior year during one of these periods that we're especially the evaluation period, you can have a conversation with the coach. Again, very important to note that this is really kind of talking about like Division I, Division II. Division III, they could always talk to you. JUCO, NAI, they can talk to you on the sidelines during your game if they wanted to. So if you are talking to a college coach at like the D1, D2 level, please just give them like a head nod. Don't like wave and say, "Hey, Coach Christy, like, how's it going?" And kind of like make it known to the world. That's happened a couple times to me at the rinks, and it's very embarrassing. Even parents, you guys are very much so off limits as well. If we bump into each other, we can say hi, but no recruiting talk is allowed to happen. Again, this is during not one of these time periods. And if you're a younger student athlete and if you're not committed to my school, don't go up to a college coach and try to start talking recruiting. If they're talking to your club coach, maybe just give them, again, like that little head nod. But when it comes to events, let's just kind of put that to the side unless a coach really wants to interact with you, is waiting for you. And they've talked to your coach saying, "Hey, Christy, Coach David wants to talk to you. Do you want to go chat with him for a couple minutes, if you will?"
Yeah, and it's important to know that. So if you go up to a college coach at an event and that coach kind of gives you the cold shoulder, you're not like, "What the heck?" Right?
I had to do that a couple times.
Again, knowing these rules, knowing the different periods, it's very important because, again, that helps you understand when you can communicate with them. Again, you don't want to, assume that a coach isn't interested because they gave you the cold shoulder, when in reality, under NCAA rules, they're just maybe not able to talk with you at that specific time. We have a video as well from a college coach here that talks a little bit more about some of the contact and some things that can be going on. So Jim Bro, be the man behind the scenes here. If you can cue that up, let's play this clip as well.
That you're planning a swing of visits, maybe over spring break, fall break, whatever. You're going to want to communicate to that coach in advance. They may be in season. They got other things going on. It's not that they don't want to meet with you, but at times I had, athletes on campus that were taking that tour through admissions, trying to figure out a little bit more about the athletic side. And they would call the athletic department main office. And then I get a call to my desk saying, "Hey, you've got a potential recruit standing here." I have to drop everything that I'm doing to focus on that athlete, not knowing anything about them. I mean, that's a bad experience both ways. So just do the coach, the service, the courtesy of, letting them know that you're going to be there, sending them a little bit more about you, maybe some videos, some grades. Say, "Coach, I'm planning on visiting because I want to know more about the school. Could we take a half hour, talk a little bit more about that program?" If that coach is interested, I mean, that's an easy one.
So I think the important thing there, Christy, that Danny hit on is really don't just show up and expect the coach to take time. They need to know who you are. Again, coaches have a lot on their plate with schedules and recruiting games and whatever else they have going on in their lives. So again, the more that you can get ahead of it and have these coaches know who you are before you go onto campus, before you go to a tournament or a showcase these coaches might be at. If they know who you are, they're more inclined to want to maybe have a communication kind of line going with you versus just randomly showing up.
Yeah, this one strikes a nerve with me, David, if I'm going to be honest here. I'm so happy that we played that because, and I might take up a little bit of more time than you might anticipate because this one gets me really fired up, and I am just so passionate about it because it blows my mind that it still happens to this day, no matter how much education that not only NCSA, but just how much recruiting education is out there in the world. Coaches don't just coach. we are so busy all the time. Even if we're not in season, we're recruiting, we're planning banquets, we have secondary duties, no matter what level that we're at. We're meeting with our student athletes. We're meeting with our ADs. There's so much going on. And I'll just flat out say it's so incredibly rude of families to just show up unannounced and be like, hey, I'm on campus, I want to meet with you. Or, 2 weeks before preseason starts, it's, hey, I got accepted to your school and I really want to play for your team. It's like, that is not it. That is not how you go about the recruiting process. I cannot stress it enough today. Please, please, please make sure you're giving the coach a heads up. Even if try to plan these things at least a month, a minimum of 2 to 2.5 weeks out, at minimum. So the coach can try to make time for you. It is really important to still schedule visits with schools. If a coach isn't available, try to hit them up on the phone before or after. But just please make sure that you're doing everything in advance, because there's been so many times where kids would just show up to campus and we would get in trouble by our athletic director saying, hey, this kid called up here. Why weren't you prepared? It's like, we don't even know who this kid is. And then we kind of have to explain ourselves. And it just makes us, as a program and coaching staff, look horrible. It actually happened today. There's a new soccer coach working at the school that my spouse works at. And they randomly got a call saying, hey, Coach Matt, you got a kid on campus. And he's like, no, I don't. And he just got hired there as the assistant coach. That's a really bad look, right? So please, please, please do not do that to college coaches. It's irritating, and we just won't recruit you.
Plan ahead. I love the initiative of it, but there's other ways to take the initiative with just an email, sending video of your profile, other ways to show that initiative outside of just popping up in front of their door with maybe this, the speakers playing and trying to sing a song to them and woo them in. So, but again, depending on the different period, again, knowing this is important, right? And again, knowledge is power, and the more educated you are on the recruiting process and what these different periods entail, that's where it's going to be impactful for knowing how to approach these situations. Again, a lot of these, student athletes, a lot of families that we speak to are brand new to recruiting. They're unsure of the process. Again, college coaches have to stick to these rules and what they have in place. And again, they can get into some serious, trouble as a program, as a coach, if they're not following the right way. So again, as families and student athletes, it's important to know this as well, so that there's not that confusion, or you're not risking getting somebody in trouble. So again, it's important to know these different recruiting calendars, to know the timeline. Again, our website, ncsasports.org, has this chart, has all this information. So again, college coaches, they know this information. They don't expect that you're going to know it necessarily. But again, just remember, June 15th, September 1st, those are the 2 dates typically for the D1s and the D2 schools, heading in that summer between your sophomore and junior year, in terms of when that contact can really pick up. So again, this is going to be more important for the junior, the senior year student athletes. But again, important to know this information so you're not putting yourself in a bad spot. So, Christy, anything else to add to this? We got some questions coming in that we certainly want to get to, but anything else that we didn't hit on?
I mean, I think I talked enough. I had my TED Talk for today.
That's why you're here, though. You're here to drop some knowledge and to tell families what to do and what not to do. You have the experience in this world.
I mean, I guess, the only thing to say, which you already nailed on, you already hit it, is coaches don't necessarily expect you to know this. And just know that coaches aren't trying to be rude. It's very confusing. The dead periods, evaluation periods, all these different rules, all these different periods, it is very confusing. So if you think like a coach snubbed you, or, something just doesn't sit right, or whatever the case may be, go ask your club coach. If you work with a recruiting coach at NCSA, go ask them questions. It never hurts to just continuously ask questions to everybody around you, because that's the only way that you're going to learn. And that's all I got, David. So let's
dive into some
fire up these questions.
Thank you for coming to your TED Talk. All right, we got a first question here from Philip, an important one, especially as we head into kind of the spring and summer period, a really critical time in recruiting. Is there a list of college junior days? Christy, I know college coaches will have some information through our network that they'll post in there. I don't think there's a magical list that you can just Google and all I'll be in there. I know our website will have camps throughout the spring and the summer, but to my knowledge, there's not like a master list that college coaches are putting together with these junior days, right?
No, I mean, outside of like our platform, we have coaches email into us saying, hey, can we promote this on your website? But it's just going to most likely be on each college sport website.
Yeah, so we're gonna have to do some individual research there. Again, our network provides a lot of that information. Typically, those junior days are only invites only. They're not just opening that up to everybody. Those are typically kids that they've already evaluated, they've already identified, and want to see a little bit more in person or a closer look at. Love this next question. I'll take this one. It's from Favor. How do I join? You want to join NCSA? That's a great question. NCSAsports.org is our website. As student athletes, you can start building a recruiting profile once you turn 13 years old. So you'll start building your recruiting profile. What our team will do is reach out to you. We want to have a conversation with you first to learn about you as a student athlete, learn where your family's at in the recruiting process, and help you guys really develop a game plan. And then we'll set up a time for your family to speak with one of our recruiting specialists. We'll walk you through the profile, make sure you guys know how to use that, how to utilize the tools in there, and again, have a really good point of direction here moving forward. So again, ncsasports.org is our website. You can hop on there, start your recruiting profile, and then we'll reach out to you and kind of follow up with the next steps. But love that question for sure. We've got one here from Stacy as well. Are 2023 still required SATs for clearinghouse eligibility? Christy, you got this one?
Yes, they are. Yes, that's the short answer, is for the clearinghouse. Or maybe they're not.
Yeah, so for 2022, 23.
Yes, sorry. I got confused on the year. They're not.
So COVID has affected them. So the question ultimately stems from when COVID started. It's okay. That's why there's two of us, right? We can. When COVID started, obviously kids weren't able to maybe take the ACT, the SAT. So the NCAA did not require that to be part of the NCAA eligibility requirements for the 2020-2021 class. They carried that forward for the 21-22, and they're carrying that forward for the 2022-2023 class as well. So again, student athletes enrolling in a D1 or a D2 college program during the 2022-2023 academic year, so this next year, you're not required to take the standardized test to meet NCAA eligibility requirements. Now, that may change moving forward. I'm guessing it will at some point change. But again, to meet the NCAA eligibility requirements, you do not have to do that. But Christy, we know, and again, you're having conversations with college coaches, that each school can be a little bit different in terms of what they're looking for.
Yeah, and my apologies for messing up. Got totally messed up on my grad years, but you are right. So even though the NCAA need it necessarily for you to get cleared, each school is different. So there still are schools out there that require SAT and or ACT. I will say this, a majority of them have kind of just cut it out. It might be coming back into like the 2023-2024 year, but it's kind of just a little bit of a waiting game. So if you are being recruited by an NCAA school, or honestly NAI for that matter as well, just make sure that you are being over communicative with that coach and asking these questions. Is the SAT or ACT required, even though it's not required by the NCAA clearinghouse?
Yeah, I would say a safe bet, probably sign up and take it just so you have it, because you never know when that information might be needed. But again, and to clarify too, the NCAA Eligibility Center, all that does is that verifies that as a student athlete, you are academically qualified and your amateur status allows you to play at the college level. That's only for Division I and Division II schools. The NAIA does have their own separate eligibility center, but for D3s, junior colleges, there's not necessarily a need to do the eligibility center. But again, if you're in the recruiting process, I think an important thing to get kind of knocked off the list, not something you need to do to start the recruiting process. It's more along kind of the steps when it comes to that. Anything else to add there, Christy?
No, but something that we didn't bring up, just on like the idea of visits. This is just for unofficial visits, and it ties into Miss Stacy's question, is make sure you are set up in the clearinghouse like right away. It doesn't matter if you're ninth grade or you're about to take your first official visit. It's very, very, very important that you set up the NCAA clearinghouse as soon as possible, especially when you start to get into your senior year and being asked or offered official visits. You have to be in the NCAA clearinghouse with that eligibility number to send to colleges and coaches. Otherwise, you're not allowed to take an official visit.
Yep. So when you register for the Eligibility Center, they give you a number. You give that to that coach or the admissions person at the university, and then you're good to go. So important one there for sure. Cool. Well, that's it for questions. We're going to hop into one of our favorite parts of the half hour, and that's recognizing some of our recent college commitments. So student athletes that have utilized the NCSA network and are advancing their sports and academic career onto the college level. So first up, we have Colin Miller. Colin is a point guard out of Marlette, Michigan. His family got an early start in the process. They did things the smart way. They signed up with us prior to his freshman year, so they got 4 years of utilizing the network, utilizing our guidance. But Colin put in a lot of work. He logged into his profile almost 400 times. Had a lot of good interest. Ended up choosing a school close to home. So he's heading to the University of Michigan Dearborn, which is an NAIA program. So congratulations to Colin.
Yeah, next up we have Mika Seitbert, and I'm praying that I said her name right. She committed to Southeastern University. Definitely different than our first commit. She was a little bit late to the game, actually her senior year. But before I kind of get into her story, just want to kind of hit on everything that she did in her profile. She had 204 logins, 24 recruiting classes, had 227 views by college coaches, appeared in over 2,500 searches, and was followed by 77 schools. You know, this kid, she was being looked at by tons of Division I programs once she got set up into NCSA. She's good. Never had a sniff because she wasn't really being super active. And then she found us and she learned about the recruiting process. So even though she was late to the game, she, as we spoke about, was very honest with college coaches and just kind of taking Southeastern University as to where she committed. She had over 14 emails with them back and forth. And it was just so awesome to look through her emails back and forth with them. Because again, she was just honest about her thoughts, ideas, being a gap year, just being late to the game. But more importantly, she was so incredibly cognizant of the coach's time for phone calls, setting up visits. Just like we discussed today, I feel like this commitment is just so perfect that I landed on to be speaking about. And again, just be open, be honest, be respectful, be empathetic of each other's time. And that's exactly what not only the college coach, but the student athlete did. And I won't go into every single detail about all these emails back and forth. But at the end of the day, she just signed her letter of intent with Southeastern, I think a couple days ago, where she's off to do some pretty amazing things.
Awesome. Yeah, that's called using the network and taking advantage of the tools for sure. So awesome. Lastly, we have Noah Bryant. Noah's a safety out of Fort Branch, Indiana. Again, very similar to Mika. Noah's family got signed up with us a little bit later, heading into his senior year, so last summer. But he still found a great opportunity to stay close to home and get an opportunity to play at the Division III level, Hanover College, another school in Indiana. So again, there's a lot when it comes to the recruiting process. We don't expect you to be experts on this. Again, so many families we touch base with are brand new and unsure what to do, and even have misconceptions a lot of times. So again, just knowing this information, again, reach out to us if you have any questions. We'll be more than happy to talk individually about your student athlete. But again, our website, Christy, as you know, has a ton of great information and constantly updating as well with some of the changes that have happened with COVID and some of the different things talked about, like the ACT, SATs, the different periods. Again, with the NCAA and COVID, it was really affected initially, but things have kind of normaled out a little bit, which is good. But again, knowledge is power. We always say it, Christy, and the more you know in this process, the better off you're going to be, probably, for sure.
And you're the best person to talk about it.
Well, I think I'm top 2 in this chat here, so I don't know if I'm the best. But
you're number 1. You're number 1.
Top 2. So awesome. Well, again, hopefully you guys learned something. Again, any questions you have individually about your student athlete, reach out to us. This is what we do. I've got a team of 1,000 plus that are dedicated to helping families, helping college coaches, and make the recruiting process as smooth as possible. So big thanks to Christy Nasipany Cicero. I'm David Kamisek. We appreciate you guys hopping on NCSA Live. We're back every Tuesday, 2 p.m. Central, to drop some knowledge and educate you guys. So have a great rest of your week. Enjoy the Final Four, and we'll see you next week.